I'm joined by Scott Lucas. He's a professor at Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. So, first of all, Scott, I just want to ask you about jdvance. He's just told CNN Trump should have a say in Federal Reserve Board policy making. Should he? And what are the implications should he become president?
The starting point is for this question of Donald Trump's long-term fight with the Federal Reserve, which is America's effectively central bank, its federal bank, uh, is that most countries in the world recognize that you need an independent central bank because you want those people to make decisions based on economic factors and the state of the economy and not on political calculations. This was an issue with the Bank of England going back a generation, and the Bank of England is now independent. The European Central Bank is independent for this reason from the policymakers of the EU. Once you inject politics into the workings of the bank, and if we're talking about maybe, for example, the setting of interest rates, if we're talking about monetary policy, how much money is circulating through the economy, once you bring in the political calculations, you no longer are paying attention to the starting point issues of, well, how can we best keep control of inflation? How can we best stimulate employment? How can we best improve our trade position? The reason why this is now an issue in 2024 is that Donald Trump and JD Vance, who are trying to get into the White House, are making loud noises about how politicians must be in control of the Federal Reserve. How can they conduct policy if they don't have the levers of America's central bank? But in fact, this is not just a campaign issue, and this is what I need to emphasize. This is actually part of a long-running attempt by Donald Trump to bend the Federal Reserve to his will and his frustration that he hasn't been able to do so. This goes back to 2018. Fast forward now to 2024. Not only does Donald Trump want to take control of the Federal Reserve, Trump is now in the position where he wants to take control of all US agencies. He'll quite often call them the deep state to try to whip up his followers. What he wants is no one standing in the way of his own personal ambition with whatever he wants to do. This has been a famous case with the Justice Department, where Trump has tried to pervert the Justice Department for years, initially to prevent himself from getting turfed out over his cooperation with Russia, then later over his blackmailing of Ukraine, where he faced his first impeachment, and then over the Justice Department's refusal to call the 2020 election fraudulent. So Trump has, got a long history of trying to bend the Justice Department, and indeed he did so to an extent with the Attorney General William Barr, who protected Trump from really being thrown out of office and possible criminal prosecution over the Trump-Russia affair by lying. I mean, Barr actually lied about what was in the Mueller report. But Trump's also tried to do this with environmental agencies. He's tried to do this with agencies overseeing healthcare, especially during the pandemic. He's tried to do it with the State Department. He's tried to do it with the CIA. Because of Trump's resentment of federal agencies, that they don't always do what he wants. This is one of the driving factors behind a 900-page document called Project 2025, which is really the blueprint for a second Trump term. And in that document, in Project 2025, it says specifically, we are looking for alternatives to the Federal Reserve. We don't want this independent bank making economic decisions. And you can't be more blatant than that.
Do you think it will be a fair election, though, considering we have the challenge of a social media which does not give clear and sometimes factual information?
The individual states, under pressure from the Trumpists, are restricting access to voting. They're trying to do this, especially in states that are swing states, like Georgia, like Arizona. They're trying to disenfranchise people because they think that will favor Trump. And that's worrying. That's worrying that people are being denied their right to vote or could be denied their right to vote in 2024 in a way that Trump attempted in 2020 but didn't succeed in doing. And then I think the second thing is social media, that as we kind of started this conversation, with about misinformation and disinformation, when you get not only Donald Trump, but when you get individuals like Elon Musk, who primary concern, maybe only concern, is their personal position. No lie is too big. No deception is too great. No disinformation is too damaging to put out there. And I think at the end of the day, what you have to count upon is not just the resilience of the US system, but the resilience of Americans. That given those issues that are important to them on a day to day basis, the economic issues, the social issues, uh, the cultural issues, the issues of foreign policy, will enough Americans actually pay attention to those issues and not be led by the nose by the spectacle, the slogans, and the lies, where America finally, as a system, after more than 250 years, reaches breaking point?